Shedeur Sanders' arm strength has nothing to do with the Cleveland Browns' high-stakes wager. What they approved was a commercial revolution. An inexperienced media company that already has a following, a brand, and a revenue stream. Rookie clauses and performance bonuses are not part of Sanders' contract. Adopting the prime equity clause is about platform ownership. Go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in the true tale and all the messy turns that aren't shown on highlight reels. Additionally, you should certainly subscribe if you plan to stay to watch how this Browns quarterback crisis unfolds. The Browns embraced a new frontier where market preparedness takes precedence over developmental potential and commercial autonomy above conformity. There was no compromise here. It was a tactic of competition. For Sanders, the numbers are just the beginning. Before he snapped a single picture, more than $14 million came in thanks only to digital infrastructure and brand equity. This agreement, which was created in close collaboration with Deion Sanders, completely upends the franchise paradigm. Athletes are no longer passive earners. They have separate economies and are asset builders. The Browns are more than simply a football team these days. They work with a player-led business as a distribution partner. Everyone in the league is now required to study what appeared to be an extension, but is actually a blueprint. Before even taking the field for an NFL snap, Shedeur Sanders just executed one of the most revolutionary moves in professional sports. Don't underestimate this. He signed more than a rookie contract. He created a complete upheaval of the NFL's established business paradigm. And the league caught flat-footed because this wasn't loud. This was not a spectacle for the media. Tucked away in the fine language of his contract with the Cleveland Browns was a deft legal move. One that could change athlete salary for a whole generation and last longer than his playing career. We refer to it as the prime equity clause. Sanders' contract does the exact opposite of most rookie contracts, which restrict players' commercial independence and direct all off-field revenues through the league's licensing system. It grants him complete control over his name, likeness, and image. Functionally as well as symbolically. Every dollar made through his brand, jersey sales, highlight reels, Instagram content, merchandising, endorsements, and everything else earns him a guaranteed, non-negotiable 20%. Furthermore, the league does not receive any of that money. It is totally self-sufficient. The collective bargaining agreement is unaffected. Revenue sharing is not triggered by it. League approval is not necessary. It's his complete stop. By itself, such clause is a legal bombshell. However, it only succeeds because Sanders didn't arrive empty-handed. He didn't show up as a growing prospect trying to establish his reputation. During his stay at the University of Colorado, he had already established an empire, brick by digital brick. YouTube channel is already profitable. Instagram made money. Running merchandise directly to consumers. Fan base, devoted, active, and willing to invest. He arrived as a successful media company, not as a novice. The Browns made an investment in it rather than merely accepting it. Sanders' shirt sales surpassed those of veterans in his first month in the league. Just that would make people take notice. Here's the twist, though. Thanks to that 20% condition, his cut from those sales was worth more than his entire rookie pay. Because players often don't own the results of their popularity, the NFL has never had to account for that kind of player-led profit margin. The league does. That was turned upside down by this, and it wasn't a joke. Going viral wasn't the goal here. It was the result of years of preparation, strategic vision, legal accuracy, and yes, the kind of digital fluency that, to be honest, most players and leagues still lack. While everyone else was still catching up on the fundamentals, Sanders and his team constructed this. Deion Sanders, his father, has been criticizing athlete exploitation for many years. However, they developed a solution rather than holding a protest. The primary equity clause did not appear out of thin air. It's the legal embodiment of that decadescent-long fight translated into enforceable language free of theatrics and designed to survive the bureaucracy of billion-dollar sports. Furthermore, since it is not theoretical, it cannot be disregarded now that it exists. Without a touchdown or a snap, it has already earned him $14 million. It's not hype. That's the structure. That is the type of proof of concept that initiates action. Accepting this offer wasn't merely a publicity stunt for the Browns. It served as a warning to the league as a whole. A tacit admission that the model is changing. That arm strength and game intelligence are no longer the only factors used to assess quarterbacks. You assess them based on conversion rates, content engagement, and follower growth. Because draft stock and brand equity are now closely related. Sports labor economics just split into two timelines at this point. Veteran athletes are already retrieving their contracts from storage. Many of them handed away their image rights years ago without hesitation. They grasp what they gave up for the first time, not because they are resentful. Not ownership, not bonuses, not pay. There was no animosity toward the prime equity provision. It brought clarity. The type of clarity that revolutionizes negotiations and broadens the discussion to include intellectual property, data ownership, and long-term residuals in addition to salaries. It's more than just a better deal. It's not the same thing. One that reimagines what it means to be a professional athlete. This is not only a football phenomenon. All leagues are keeping an eye on it. The NBA already leans toward individual branding due to its star-driven structure. But Sanders' contract offers a framework, one that's portable, repeatable, and legally sound. Promoters of combat sports, MLS teams, and even Olympic committees are viewing this as a model to be modified rather than a novelty. And it won't be long until that adaptation happens. There isn't a loophole in the clause itself. It's not breaking the law. It has its roots in fundamental contract law. Unless specifically waived, it takes advantage of people's right to maintain control over their own image. Because they're hurried, ignorant, or persuaded it's standard, the majority of athletes automatically waive those rights. Sanders didn't. Rather, he reversed the hierarchy of licensing. He made his approval conditional and revocable rather than giving the league free rein to exploit his identity. Before opening the door, he constructed the walls. Everything is altered just by that. The NFL is not worried about losing money. It has to do with losing control. They have promoted the league as the product for decades. Players were controlled, interchangeable assets. Now, however, the league serves as a distribution partner, the athlete serves as the product, and the team serves as a platform. This reversal threatens their narrative hegemony. And it's already taking place. Highlight rights, a hitherto unnoticed problem, are now in the spotlight. In the past, sharing videos of their own performances required players to request permission. Sanders, his highlights, and his property are no longer covered by that arrangement, and if additional players do the same, the league will lose control of the material pipeline. This provision creates the conditions for a player-owned media environment that is more dispersed. Because a centralized league model's disintegration poses an existential threat. That risk was not disregarded by the Browns. They recognized the benefits, therefore they agreed to it. Investing in a ready-made company with exponential development potential was necessary in order to offer a personalized clause. Additionally, the team's risk is really lower because Sanders' revenues are unrelated to success. He doesn't need to win games to be profitable. Team-first sports is not going extinct. One-size-fits-all contracts are dying. Additionally, league homogeneity becomes a liability now that athletes are aware that this is feasible. Teams who insist on obsolete templates will lose out to those prepared to meet players where they are digitally, commercially, and legally. The replication of the prime equity clause is no longer a question. Whoever adopts it first loses talent if they don't. Institutions that stand to lose the most, legacy broadcast agreements, exclusive license contracts, and league-wide marketing partnerships, will be the main sources of resistance. However, since the clause is enforceable, legal opposition won't last. Additionally, anyone who rejects it after a big league does appears to be anti-competitive. Antitrust scrutiny is made possible by this. Resistance is harmful at that point, in addition to being out of date. The wider effects extend beyond athletics. This particular event is a part of a broader cultural and economic change. Filmmakers break free from the studio structure in the same manner that musicians did. Instead of assaulting the gates, athletes are now creating their own to get around league gatekeeping. This is the appearance of post-digital labor. Owned, decentralized, and audience-direct. There is more to the Sanders approach than just financial gain. It's a roadmap that demonstrates to athletes how to turn the value flow from institutions back toward the individuals who initially created the demand. Being larger than the league is not the goal. It has to do with not requiring the league to be large. Let's discuss the implications of this for the future. Should players entering professional leagues have this kind of clause as a standard option? Would it be better for leagues to work with players instead of owning them? And how do the economics of team sports change if this becomes the standard? Please share your opinions below. Tell someone who still believes that the league sets the rules about this. If you think this change is long time, use the like button. Additionally, because this isn't the end of the narrative, make sure you're subscribed. In a completely new playbook, it's only the first signed clause. Shedeur Sanders did not sign a deal. It was an announcement that the terms of engagement had changed for all athletes, agents, executives, and organizations. It wasn't because there was a lawsuit or protests, but rather because a 21-year-old quarterback with a lucrative YouTube channel and a strong legal team entered the NFL and declared, "This is how it will work," and it did. This wasn't a flashy publicity stunt. It was a strategy based on actual leverage, carried out with legal clarity and supported by a personal media operation that shone its value even before he put on a Browns uniform. It wasn't an anomaly that he earned $14 million before to his first snap. It served as evidence. Shedeur Sanders didn't wait for approval from the NFL. He arrived as a finished product with an audience, a message, and a monetization scheme already in operation. And the NFL had to question itself, are we ready to partner with someone who doesn't need us, for the first time? Because this is precisely what it is. A collaboration, not a deal, not a contract in which the player receives the uniform and the league receives the upside. This is a trade of mutual value. And the legal foundation that enabled it is the main equity clause. Let's not minimize this disruption. This clause affects more than just one player's earnings. It completely transforms the professional sports labor model. Furthermore, that is not only unsettling but also disruptive for a league like the NFL, which is based on strict control over media rights, player images, and centralized income flows. Because this is the reality. The league has never wanted to admit. Before the league ever touches them, they have always relied on players not understanding their value, their options, or how to develop, own, and grow their platforms. Shedeur blew that door wide open. Getting a quarterback wasn't the only reason the Browns decided to accept the provision. They discovered something that the rest of the league is still struggling with, therefore it was a strategic and business choice. Talent is no longer simply drafted. You are not merely onboarding a player, you are drafting brands. A full commercial engine is being onboarded by you. Additionally, when properly constructed, that engine doesn't require league-sponsored advertisements or team promotions. It has its own economy, community, and content. This is why this is so important. Because Sanders receives more than simply a portion of future earnings under the Prime Equity Clause. It grants him total control over who he is. Collaborations, shirts, videos, and even his own highlights. He doesn't need to inquire. He is not required to wait. He owns it. This turns into a more significant labor issue at that point. Players, particularly rookies, were encouraged for decades to wait their turn, sign the standard contract, concentrate on football, and let the league take care of the rest. And they did just that for decades because they believed it was necessary. Because it appeared to be the only choice due to the system. No more. Rookies are now inquiring about license splits. Players are verifying the phrase used in image rights. Veterans are reconsidering the agreements they made 10 years ago. That awareness was not created by the provision, but it was quickly accelerated. It revealed the fact that many players never truly lacked leverage. They just lacked the precedents, the context, and the terminology. They have it now, and it won't go away. In fact, since this isn't static income, the more awareness Sanders receives, the more valuable that 20% gets. It's equity scaling. The value of his arrangement increases as his videos go viral, his merchandise sells, and his profile expands. It provides for itself. It differs from conventional contracts because of this. This isn't simply about short-term earnings. Ownership, not pay, is the foundation of intergenerational wealth. Because it compels a mental change from the player as a product to the player as co-creator of the system, that idea of ownership is what really upends the league. Someone with autonomy, rights, and the capacity to refuse requests or bargain for better terms. It goes beyond simply getting paid more. It's about taking ownership of what you've previously produced. The NFL has built a system in which it owns everything over the course of decades. In certain situations, licensing includes highlights, likenesses, video, logos, and even a player's name. While the players receive the minimum cut permitted by the CBA, The league manages distribution earnings from syndication and sells the player's image back to the public. When someone attempted to contest it, they were either too tiny, too early, or too isolated to successfully implement the change. Shedeur Sanders is not alone. He is a part of an expanding cultural movement. One in which artists from all sectors are regaining authority. Musicians no longer need record labels. Studios are no longer necessary for filmmakers. Additionally, leagues are no longer necessary for athletes to make money off of their labor. Because work is what this is. Merchandising design, audience development, and content production. These are actual revenue streams, not side gigs, and Shedeur shown that they may serve as your primary source of income if you establish them prior to going pro. The Browns were aware of that, but they remained unfazed. That's the portion that should be highlighted. This contract would have been rejected by most teams. Too intricate, too disruptive, too unconventional. Cleveland, however, recognized the writing on the wall. They realized that future top talent will want more than a locker and signing bonus. They observed the emergence of a new class of athletes who are proficient on both platforms and playbooks. Additionally, you must give more than just a salary if you wish to sign them. You must propose a partnership. Other teams are already reconsidering their strategy because they run the risk of falling behind in free agency if they don't. There will be more to top-tier talent than merely comparing coaching staffs and depth charts. They'll be comparing commercial autonomy, revenue, splits, and no safeguards. This is the most recent scouting report. Do you want to be the next Shedeur? You better be ready to treat him like a business, not a brand extension, because he's not coming in to be controlled. He's coming in to negotiate. This turns into a real paradigm shift at that point. Because once athletes understand they can own their content, their image, their earnings, and once they have a workable legal mechanism to enforce it, it's not a question of if more will follow. It's how rapidly. The primary equity clause is more than just ingenious. It is long-lasting. It can withstand imitators. It can withstand opposition. Additionally, Sanders' success under it increases its value as a model. The NFL will eventually have to make a decision. Accept the change or resist it. Either maintain centralized authority or adjust to a decentralized world in which each actor has their own platform. And the league is simply one of many tools they deploy. Because a player's rights are not the only things covered by the Prime Equity Clause. It outlines a new framework that is more intelligent, equitable, and appropriate for the times we live in. Not the one that legacy leagues continue to think we inhabit. The outdated model is breaking. This new one is already operational. What comes next, then? The question is that. Do leagues try to enforce contracts that will only get more antiquated with each passing season, or do they evolve? Do they collaborate with players, or do they lose them to other systems that value ownership right away? We're in it now, whatever comes next. The NFL's concern isn't that Shedeur Sanders made $14 million without touching a field. It's that he did it without them. It's not only disconcerting for a league that is fixated on controlling every dollar, every image, and every story. It poses a risk to their fundamental tenet. That the NFL is the ultimate destination, the pinnacle of the hierarchy, and the gatekeeper to notoriety, fortune, and power. However, Sanders demonstrated that if you create your own road, the gate doesn't really matter. It is possible to front-load fame, wealth, and influence. That the NFL is a landing zone rather than a launch pad. And now that the plan is out, there's no way to put it back in the box. This disturbance is not theoretical. This is lucrative, operational, and recorded. The expectations of what a rookie can expect are rewritten. Every negotiation becomes a possible line in the sand as a result. Do you offer a partnership or a salary? In actuality, this moment did not occur in a vacuum. It's a part of a larger trend in which athletes are inquiring about how they will be compensated rather than just how much. What do I own, in addition to my signing bonus? What am I in charge of? When my name appears on the back of a jersey, what does it create and how much of it do I receive? Why shouldn't they inquire about that? They are the ones who sell merchandise, fill stadiums, and increase viewership. The league handled that as a group effort for many years. After passing through the shield, everything was divided according to internal algorithms. Shedeur, however, did not accept that. If my name is on the jersey, I want my percentage. No middleman, no revenue share, no approval process, he declared, and he is now receiving it. Here's the worst part. This isn't a headline-grabbing diva clause. This is silent, scalable, and compliant with the law. It didn't result from a public demonstration or a viral effort. It comes through tedious bureaucracy, which increases the threat to the status quo. Because it is impossible to portray it as dramatic or unprofessional. It's simply a more intelligent contract. Additionally, individuals start asking more intelligent questions when they see a better contract. Despite its might, the NFL is powerless to prevent that. It can delay. It has the ability to push back. It can try to intimidate agents and discourage teams. However, the precedent cannot be reversed. Particularly when the money is genuine and it has already sparked a fierce industry response. Combat sports managers drafting their own nil clauses, NBA agents observing, and MLS attorneys reworking contracts. This was more than just a single athlete receiving compensation. Changing the axis of power was the goal here. As of right now, it's unclear if more players will follow Shedeur. It's who's next? And when the next big prospect enters the room with a media deck and his highlight video, he says, "This is my audience. This is my merchandise business. This is the money I make on my own." What can you add to that? More than a signing bonus must be the solution. That's what this particular occasion produced. A new generation of athletes. Athletes with an entrepreneurial mindset, legal acumen, and digital fluency who not only train like pros but also run like companies. And they're coming now that they've witnessed its success. Furthermore, they are not requesting authorization. We're just getting started, so please hit the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts on this new player-powered period, and make sure you're subscribed if you're still interested. This is more than simply a contract tale.